Hello, everybody. My name is Janet Sheriff, and welcome to Kissing the Cod, all things gold. The gold exploration business is a tough world, and it's often driven by fiercely independent and very colorful characters, highly intelligent, and with great perseverance. Stumbling over my words already. These people live colorful lives, which often takes them around the world and leads them to often, if they're lucky and very fortunate and hardworking, many discoveries, gold and other minerals that are very important in our daily lives. Today, we're joined by a very accomplished geologist, Adrian Fleming, who I have had the fortune of meeting before when we worked up in Canada's Yukon. And he is now in Canada's Newfoundland, where he is the CEO and director of Gold Island, a gold exploration company. And he has accumulated a series of projects with another colleague of ours, Sean Ryan, a very successful and world-renowned prospector. So with that lengthy introduction, welcome, Adrian. It's great to have you today.
Janet, good morning, and it's great to have an opportunity to chat with you about my favorite subject, or one of my favorite subjects, which is looking for treasure, looking for gold. As you said, I am currently the CEO and director of Gold Island Inc. That company is still private. We have 7 projects in Newfoundland, which we optioned from Sean Ryan. We started exploration on those last year. We spent about $1 million doing a lot of systematic soil geochemical sampling, and we're going to be gearing up for a pretty aggressive field program this summer, starting next month in May. But firstly, maybe just a little bit about my background. I'm an Aussie, trained in Adelaide University in South Australia, and then in the early part of my career, worked mainly in Australia and Papua New Guinea. I've probably been in this exploration space principally for gold for, golly, it's got to be nearly 4 decades now. And I've been very lucky because I've been either a part of teams or the leader of teams that have made some pretty significant discoveries. And let me just take you through those. So Porgera in Papua New Guinea, we found the high-grade zone back in the early 80s, and that became a huge mine. It's produced more than 30 million ounces of gold. The next one was Big Bell in Western Australia, which when I was working for a wonderful company called Placer Development, a Canadian company, and that turned out to be a mine. Then I got involved with a guy called David Fennell, and that team, of which I was the leader, found a very nice gold deposit called Rosebel in Suriname. And then I worked up in Hope Bay. That was my first exposure to Canada north of the Arctic Circle. And for a kid that grew up in Alice Springs, that was that was pretty confronting. I'd never been anywhere in the world where you worked in both summer and winter, and of course the temperature's just crazy minus 30 degrees, and then you had the wind chill, and but a marvelous part of the world. Then in 2008, I had a company called Underworld Resources. We optioned a property from Sean Ryan, and in very short order, we made a discovery on the back of Sean's very elegant systematic soil geochemical sampling. We made a discovery at what became known as Golden Saddle, and that now is regarded as the White Gold District. And after a couple of years of drilling, we had been able to define about 1 million ounces of open pitable material, running a bit better than 2 grams per ton. So what does that sequence of good fortune create? Well, it creates an addiction, and I have to admit to that addiction because, well, the next one might be bigger and better, and we made nice money out of Underworld Resources, and then I was involved with another company called John Robbins out of the Discovery Group in Vancouver called Northern Empire, and we put some more money in the bank as a result of that because both those companies got taken out. So I'm well and truly addicted to this process of looking for gold deposits, and Hence coming out of my semi-retirement to head up Gold Island in Newfoundland, which has fabulous geology, and on the basis of, well, you know, we might make an even bigger one this time.
Well, you're obviously very good at it. There's no doubt. And one of the things that I really want to point out to people, one of the benefits of going to this online forum that we've had to go to for far too long is you're in New Zealand right now. And we're able to have this conversation, a different part of your day. But how did you end up? You're addicted to gold discovery. You're very successful at it. How did you end up in Newfoundland again with Sean?
Yes, well, 6 months ago, Sean and Kathy. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's often the person that stands behind the person who really makes them able to achieve what they achieve. And Sean Ryan's very fortunate to be married to a lovely lady called Kathy Wood, and Kathy's the business brains of that group, or that duo. Sean's the dreamer, he's the researcher. You know, he's out there doing very high quality field work. But they called me and said, we've got this company, we're starting up in Newfoundland, and we'd like your help. And I said, golly, you know, I'm a director of 3 Canadian-based companies already, and I might have to give one of those up to be able to help you out. And I said, no, we don't want you to be a director. We want you to be the CEO. And I said, pooh, I'm getting a bit old for this kind of stuff. And I said, no, hang on. Don't say no yet. So I had never been to Newfoundland. I knew nothing about Newfoundland's geology. I had worked quite a bit in Canada as well as other parts of the world. So I spent a couple of weeks looking at the geology of Newfoundland, the metallurgy, the controls to mineralization, some of the other companies that were working there and are still working there. And like a big fish, Janet, I took the bait. I couldn't help myself. I said, yes, I'm very happy to do this, to help you guys out, to lead the charge, but I can only give you about half of my time. So I've got to be a little bit disciplined, because I get excited about this stuff. And my wife says, come on, come down and cook dinner. You know, you can't just spend the whole day playing around with this gold stuff.
I love it. I'm hoping that Sean and Kathy join us on our podcast. I think she's one of the smartest people, and a real gem to have her involved in Newfoundland. So you're involved in Newfoundland, and what is the focus for the company this year?
That's a good question. We have 7 different project areas, which is a big mouthful. And almost all of those are greenfields projects. In other words, they've had essentially no recent systematic gold exploration work done on them. Within one of our properties called Notre Dame, we have prospects called the Burton prospects. They have a couple of those 3 prospects have a couple of drill holes, 20 meters at 0.7 or something like that. Quite a lot of interesting grab samples on the surface, up to 10 grams per ton. I think there's a channel sample that's running 3 meters at 56 grams per ton. So of the different properties, and they're in different parts of the island, Burton is the one that's the highest ranked. But the soil geochemistry that we did last year on 4 of our 7 properties, notwithstanding that was quite widely spaced geochemical sampling done by Ground Truth Exploration, which is part of the Sean Ryan Kathy Wood empire, if you like. That first phase of systematic soil geochemistry has come back with some quite interesting results. And so this year, 2022, we're going to be following those up, going out on the ground, prospecting, trying to see where is there some outcrop we can see, is there some veining, is there some alteration where these anomalous gold samples occur, and then move towards the end of the year to drilling, probably cheap and dirty, if you like, rotary air blast drilling to begin with, if we've got to get through overburden or till to get down to bedrock to get samples. And then I'd like to think by the end of the year, at least one of those projects would be ready for some core drilling.
Excellent. So what was it? Like, one of the things that drew me to Newfoundland and Labrador, focusing on Newfoundland, is it was almost like this undiscovered gem. That yes, there'd been some mining activity, and yes, there's some gold mines, but the true potential of Newfoundland had not even been realized because of the way that the mineral leases were handled. So what about Newfoundland just made you want to get out of retirement, go back into? It's a tough job being a CEO of a company. It's not. It's a great deal of time and energy.
What made me go back? I think what made me come back to head up a company doing exploration is that there's a tremendous amount of potential in this part of Canada, this far eastern part of Canada, and I continue to be puzzled as to why it's been overlooked for so long. But you've got world-class geology here, with a whole group of different slivers of continental crust jammed up against one another. There are these major structural breaks across the island, and they form cracks in the Earth's crust where gold-bearing fluids can percolate up and precipitate out near the surface. But I think the other aspect that really caught my attention was that there are both lower grade and higher grade deposits on the island. And I thought in this podcast, Janet, it might be useful for me to just talk a little bit about some of the recent discoveries and developments on the island, and how they compare and contrast in terms of grade.
Oh no, please do. I'd love to. I'd love to hear it.
So let's just talk quickly about what's going on there. This is a very high level view. And of course, the current producing mine is owned and operated by Anaconda. They're going to produce about 22,000 ounces of gold this year. They've been doing some excellent work on what they call their Goldboro project that has measured and indicated resources of about 2.5 million ounces, running 3.7 gram per ton. They have a little mill at Pine Cove. And so they're moving to develop this larger deposit. But let's look at some of the other companies that are working on the island, and let's look at what their resources are in terms of low grade, high grade, open pit versus underground mining. So just to run through a list here, Matador Mining is a bunch of Aussies. Their project's called Cape Ray. They're at the advanced exploration stage. They've defined almost 1 million ounces of 2 gram per ton in several different deposits, like pearls on a string, and they're going to be moving towards a mining development quite soon. Marathon is the big gorilla in the room at the moment, if you like. Their Valentine Lake project, they've just received approvals from both Canada and the province to proceed towards development. They call that their Valentine Lake project, and they have almost 4 million ounces, just a touch under 2 gram per ton. And once again, a bit like Matador, they have found several deposits, all open pittable, but the grade is just a touch under 2, like 1.75 gram per ton. I think the company that really has attracted a lot of attention right across Canada, and in fact in other parts of the world, is Newfound Gold on the Queensway North deposit. And they're in the resource definition phase. And what's very different about Newfound versus Matador and Marathon is that their mineralization is very high grade, like crazy grades. And I'll, in a minute, just open up my screen here and cite some of the grades to you. Next to Newfound Gold, on the Appleton fault structure, which is one of these major cracks right across the island, is a company called Labrador Gold. They recently made a discovery, two discoveries, in fact, Big Vein and Golden Glove. Once again, very high-grade mineralization, and both Newfound Gold and Labrador have not released a resource estimate, but those kinds of grades will lead to underground mine development. Maritime Resources, again, quite high grade. They've defined a deposit at Hammerdown. It was previously mined before. They are going to ship that to the Anaconda Mill. That's a redevelopment. What was mined underground before, they've done a lot of drilling on. They got about 900,000 ounces at 5 grams per ton. So that's a medium grade open pit. And then Sockerman with their Moosehead project, once again, a little bit like Newfoundland and Labrador Gold, high grade, and would undoubtedly be an underground mine. Let me just speak about Marathon Gold's Valentine Lake project, and I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes about what they call their Berry deposit. Now, Berry has about 550,000 ounces. It's open pit. It will be an open pit. The grade's about 1.65 gram per ton. And here are a couple of the typical drill intercepts. They've drilled it on 50 to 100 meter centers, but things like 27 meters at 2.5 grams per ton, 24 meters at 1.8 grams per ton. And interestingly, in both those is a narrower interval of much higher grade material. So in the 27 meters at 2.5 grams per ton, there's 1 meter at 14. So that pumps the grade up a little bit. And then in the 24 meters at 1.8, there's 1 meter at 17.1. And so that kicks the grade up. And what that's telling me is that there's probably several phases of mineralization, and the last one has pushed some of this extra grade in, like icing on the cake, to just push the grade up a little bit. So they've done on the Berry deposit about 40,000 meters of drilling just on that one deposit, and Marathon have several deposits. So if you say the all-up cost of that drilling is, $300 a meter or so, the discovery cost for Marathon of the Berry deposit is about $22 an ounce. So let's look at Newfound Gold. And Newfound Gold is the other end of the spectrum. Marathon is relatively low grade open pit. Newfound Gold have got these very, very high grades, and undoubtedly will be, maybe a little bit of open pit mining, but the bulk of that will have to be mined underground. Mm-hmm. They've already completed 140,000 meters of drilling. They're working towards completing 400,000 meters of drilling. And so if you again take $300 a meter as a cost, they'll spend $120 million to define that deposit. And it's not just one deposit. Keats is the one that everybody knows about, but they found several others. So if we say, and as I said before, Newfound Gold have not put out a resource estimate yet. If, just to speak hypothetically, if we say Newfound Gold might put out a resource estimate down the track a little bit at 3 million ounces, and if they've spent 120 million on defining that, the cost per ounce is going to be $40, which is double what Marathon Gold have spent. But let me come back to just a few examples of the kinds of intercepts that Newfound Gold are pulling. 19 meters at 93 grams per ton.
Wow.
25.2 meters at 25 grams per ton. That's just crazy stuff. But yes, it creates an issue. And the issue is called nugget effect. And nugget effect is something that is created when you have relatively coarse particles of gold that make up the deposit. So Marathon, with their low-grade mineralization, is by and large very fine particles of gold. Newfound gold, on the other hand, with Keats and Lotto and Dome and Golden Joint, have this very high grade mineralization. So you get these blobs of gold in the core. And nugget effect is a bit of a bugger, excuse the French, because you need a lot of drilling to get a representative resource estimate. And let me try and give you an analogy here. Let's say we've got a loaf of bread, raisin bread, and it's got half a dozen raisins in it. And then we have some knitting needles. Imagine the knitting needles are drill holes, and we push these knitting needles through the loaf of bread. What are the chances that 4 knitting needles will hit any of those 4 raisins that are in the loaf? Pretty low probability that they will hit. And so this is why Newfound gold have to drill so many holes, because you've got this issue of nugget effect. And an extreme example of nugget effect are diamond deposits, because diamonds are only really valuable if they're big. The concentration of diamonds in a diamond pipe is probably a 50th or 100th of what you see in something like Newfound gold's discovery. And so diamond explorers will do a little bit of drilling, and then they'll take out a bulk sample. They'll take out 100 ton and then process that in a mini plant, and that gives them an idea of what they've got. So a question that I pose to myself is, okay, we're working in Newfoundland, Newfound gold, and a lot of people give more credibility to a high-grade deposit than a low-grade deposit. So given that Gold Island, the company that I'm heading up, has 7 projects, what would I prefer to find? Would I prefer to find?
I was wondering.
Sorry?
I was wondering.
Yeah. Would I prefer to find a lower grade marathon type deposit or a higher grade Newfound gold or Labrador gold deposit? Well, I can't determine what we as the team behind Gold Island is going to find. We hope we can find a deposit, and whatever it is, it is. But if I had a magic wand and I could say, well, this is what I want to find, I would rather, I think, find a 2 gram per ton deposit like Matador and Marathon have, and Anaconda are mining, than a very high grade one like Labrador gold and Newfound gold have got their teeth into, because the lower grade ones with smaller particles of gold are going to demand less drilling and, I think, a quicker route to defining a resource. And if you look at profitability of gold deposits around the world, and one of the benchmarks for profitability is what's called all-in sustaining cost. It's interesting to compare higher grade underground mines with lower grade open pit mines, and there's no direct relationship between all-in sustaining cost and grade. Some of the lower grade mines are more profitable than some of the underground high grade mines, and vice versa. So what's in the ground, Janet, is yet to be found by Gold Island. And I'd be happy with either. Give me a Newfound gold type deposit, or give me a Marathon or Matador type deposit, and enough ounces for it to be a viable gold project. I'd be very happy with that. And I think one other thing that I find quite remarkable is that Newfoundland is not that big a landmass, but there's all this success. We've got all these companies that are making discoveries, and there's a number of others in addition to what I mentioned already. So it's a great place to be exploring. Canada's a great place to be exploring. And Newfoundland overlooked for a long time, but now there's a rush to Newfoundland. There's a lot of really good exploration going on. There's a lot of smart people, smarter than me, who are doing excellent work. And in 5 or 10 years' time, Newfoundland Newfoundland's going to be regarded as, the gold capital of Canada, with all these fabulous discoveries that are being made, and the ability, as we've seen with Marathon, to move very quickly to get permitted and build a mine and start producing bricks of gold.
Yeah, I agree. I really, it's very, and I don't know how people can fully understand this if you don't have the history in the sector. Having a modern day gold rush is not, it's extremely rare to be in this position where the potential for discovery in a jurisdiction is as high as it is in this modern day. And I think that the jurisdiction people in it are going to benefit from this. One of the things that you talked about was the economics between the low grade and high grade, and it really seems to drive a lot of your thinking that don't look at high grade versus low grade, look at economics. How do you manage that in a sector that seems to attract investors that are really into high grade?
I think it's education. I think webinars like this, podcasts where we're talking about the subject and we're saying a lower grade open pit mine can be very profitable, and I think the other aspect of it is that high grade mines are capital intensive. It probably costs more money to develop an underground mining operation than an open pit mining operation. I mean, with an open pit, you scrape off the soil and the surface and you're straight into it, provided the deposit comes to the surface. With an underground mine like Newfoundland Gold have got and Labrador Gold have just found, you have to do declines and shafts and a lot of other stuff to be able to begin to move tonnage of gold bearing rock up to the mill, and there's clearly a place for both kinds of systems. And I think the faster that a company can move to define a resource is one of the key things that attracts investors' attention. And Newfoundland Gold have done a great job in promoting what they have, but they're still quite a long way away from defining a resource. Whereas Matador have been able to move quite quickly to defining a resource, and they're continuing to increase that with their exploration. There are some people out there who are total gold grade nuts, if you like, and so they'll only invest in things that are high grade. But I think savvy investors will look at what's the company doing, how long is it until they may have made a discovery, how long is it until they'll have a resource to find, and then how much longer will it be until they'll be able to produce gold. And often it's from discovery to first production can be 6 to 10 years. Yeah. And in some cases much longer than that.
Well, and I think, you're being a bit understated. I think another big factor in investors need to consider is management, and having someone that's as passionate about what they're doing and accomplished in what they're doing, like yourself, is incredibly important. And I think it's going to be an exciting year for Gold Island. And I'm not sure if I mean Newfoundland or your company, but maybe both, right?
I think it is.
It's a great name. It's a great name.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Adrian, you did do a longer version of a presentation similar to this on it's available on goldisland.ca, and I imagine on YouTube as well. So I'll draw everyone's attention to that in case they want to see the entire presentation. I do want to thank you for joining us today, and I wish you the best of luck in your exploration season this year on Newfoundland's beautiful Gold Island. Great name. I also want to thank everyone for joining us today. And as always, please join us in the future at Kissing the Cod, All Things Gold, where I hope you will continue to meet some interesting people and hear some great stories. But thank you again, everyone, and thank you again, Adrian.
Thank you, Janet. My pleasure.